Hello everyone, my name is Kat. I'm a marketing intern here at the Leatherby Center for Entrepreneurship. Today I'm here with Lynn Jochim, who is an advisor and former president and chief operating officer for 5 Point Holdings. We welcome you to Insert Innovation. So glad you could be here. Insert Innovation is a podcast that was created by Benjamin Janey, sponsored by the Leatherby Center for Entrepreneurship, kind of to get a more in-depth story behind entrepreneurs and inspire our student entrepreneurs as well to take on that. But with that, my first question to you is, how would you define innovation?
You know, the first word that comes to my mind when we talk about innovation is really curiosity. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big believer, though, in order to innovate, you have to innovate as a community and together. And it's that constant reflection of what we've been doing and how that plays a role in what we're going to do next in order to innovate something new. But we're in a constant state of innovation, just kind of like the one thing that we know is true is that things are always going to change.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. In what ways has innovation played a role in your career or helped you attain your goals in life?
It was the fact that you go forward without fear. And as you move forward in whatever you do, especially if you tend to... See, I think we're all entrepreneurs until something comes up that gets us, has fear, and we take it and we hesitate. And when we hesitate, then we somehow think we can't go, we can't do, we can't be, we can't innovate. But it's not true. We can. So that's why you need community. That's why you need to collaborate with each other to constantly be encouraging yourself and others to move forward collectively. Mm-hmm. So in my career, I was fortunate enough to have a very interesting background. And what was terrific about it is everything I've ever done in my life has shown back up in my career. So it's no matter how circuitous the route is, everything you do is going to be beneficial to you in the long term. Mm-hmm. And I was very fortunate because real estate is a part of the business, but the part of the business I have always been in was the development business. And the development business is really the fact that you're looking at things very long term. Real estate's a bit transactional, but development is long term. You're like planning communities that are going to be 30 years out. Like my children, the children that are going to live in these communities haven't even been born yet. Mm-hmm. So the biggest part about how innovation has played a role for me is that the curiosity of everything that's going on around you all the time, it plays a role in what you're going to do and how you're going to be in the business of real estate development going forward.
Mm-hmm. Going off of something that you said about having no fear, a lot of like student entrepreneurs, when they're starting off, there's fear of failure. So what would you say to them, or how did you come out of that fear in the start? Or did you even have fear in the start?
I think we all have fear to the point that you don't want to make a mistake. I think we have a society, we grade, right? We have grades, A, B, C, and therefore if you get a C, it means you didn't do as well as somebody who got an A. Or if you are an athlete, right? If you are a D3 athlete versus a D1 athlete. So we have these ways we measure what we believe success is, which then in turn creates sort of this element that if you don't get the best grade or you don't run the fastest mile, or you're not the best of this or that, then, or best reader or whatever it might be, then you have this you start to have a fear that you're not going to be able to do something. And it's really the fact that if you set aside all the other ways that we measure success and know that only yourself can determine how successful you can be, then you can push that fear away. But it comes actually from a constant conversation, right? And again, I'm going to go to community. If we are in a supportive community that helps us not be fearful, because we're all moving forward together, then we will be able to obtain so much more.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. What inspired you to pursue a career in the real estate industry?
I used to always laugh at this question because of the fact that not only did I end up in this development field, but people always ask me as a female, how did I end up in the development field? And I used to compare it to other industries that were maybe historically were family businesses, and that's how you'd end up with them. But interestingly enough, I started my world in a family business where my father was a developer and had a company that did land and cattle. So I grew up in the ag industry, raised sheep, went to the fair, and ended up with a lot of respect as a steward of the land. And had a lot of value to me the land as the commodity versus maybe a stock that was a commodity. I like the tangible nature of land. And over the years, as I started doing development at a very young age, I just had the passion for creating something, that a place where people were going to live or going to go to school or were going to recreate, just all those things. And then eventually, after working for my family for years, I went to work for a public home building company that then eventually we created a separate company and took it public, but which was all phenomenal. But I think the inspiration behind it started at such a young age because I really enjoyed just being outside and enjoying being outside and living outside and working outside and playing outside. So it's and then you sort of coexisting with nature. You know, those of us that kind of grew up in that world probably have an environmental nature to us, because we want to do things in the development business, but we also want to be respectful of the land.
Could you tell us about a time when you believe technology helped solve a major problem, and what was the impact?
It's funny, I keep going back to the same thing, is that I think technology is phenomenal, but unless we all help it move forward, it just becomes something. We have to always integrate it into, technology has to is a tool to innovate. It's a tool to curiosity. It's a tool to move forward. It is not what we're driving toward. It's what's helping us drive forward. So I don't know if I could really point out one point in time where I think, I mean, there's so much that has evolved in our business, but I think that it's difficult to look as to say this is one particular time that I would have said, or the impact that it would have had. You know, there's huge technology. I mean, when we built the Great Park in Irvine, and you took that as being a military base where you had helicopters landing there at one point, or planes landing there. It had the longest runways as any base. The technology then that you took and respected the past and then created the future that's there today has all kinds of impact that occurred, because technology changed the world and the way we saw it from having these military bases located in Irvine. So I think it can come through all kinds of avenues.
Right.
So,
going off of that a little bit, the newest technology that's kind of overtaking the world right now is like AI, and a lot of people are in fear of it. Do you have any thoughts about that?
well, I always have this little joke because I grew up in the egg industry, and I always knew AI is artificial insemination. That was the terminology. So it always I slip up sometimes when we're talking about artificial intelligence, which artificial insemination is a technology of itself, right? Where you are, what do I think about it? I think that we always still need to be the check and balances to any technology. And I think it's an amazing, helpful tool.
Right.
Again, like all technology, I don't think we're not driving to be AI. AI is there to assist us move forward. And as long as we stay ahead and keep ourselves in that state of curiosity and innovation, AI will always be there to help us. I think the fearful factor that people have with it is its ability to come up with data and information so quickly. But that just means we are going to need to continue to expand our own minds in order to be able to know the information that is obtainable to us is the right information, because we have the ability to be able to filter out what may not be good information or bad information, like any data that's presented to us.
Right. Could you share a story with your audience about a time you had to come up with an innovative solution to overcome an obstacle or solve a problem, and what steps were taken to create that solution?
I think I was fortunate that every day in the business that I have been in, it was another day to be able to solve a problem. And as the company, we had assets in very different marketplaces. One was in, San Francisco at Candlestick and Hunters Point. The other one was in LA County, and the other one is here in Irvine. Every one of those had a problem that came up every day. And I think that the best way to always solve those problems is to be able to to understand the root of it. Where did it come from? How did that problem exist? What was the history of it? And then to, what is, I think, a great quote about, I think it may have been Churchill, the further you go back in history is the further you go forward in the future. And so I think in any of these situations when an obstacle presented, it was always so advantageous to go back and look at the history of where the issue came from in order to be able to solve it quickly.
Mm-hmm. What new technologies do you think will shake up the real estate industry within the next 5 years?
I think data is always something that's just constantly being available,
mm-hmm.
and the access and the how quick we can get to data. How we can link ourselves worldwide to information, and analyze trends quickly, whether those are demographic trends that are local or regional or national, international. And so I think that is going to continue to help others make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that what also is going to continue to shake up the industry is just the change in humanity and what they're looking for there as the next,
right?
What's next? We've gone through these revolutions, right? We went through the agriculture revolution, went through industrial revolution. Now we're in a digital revolution, and so where we head now with the digital revolution is going to have huge changes into the future, not
mm-hmm.
just the next 5 years, but the next 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Are there any new developments in the real estate or 5 Point Holdings that you're most excited about?
Well, I was very It was a real gift to be a part of 5 Point for that many years,
mm-hmm.
and then and now that I'm no longer with the company, I for myself personally, I just see things that connect us worldwide, and so I'm excited just personally for opportunities that I see that exist out there, not just in California, but maybe in other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm. Who would you consider as your favorite innovator?
Well, I mentioned that it always was Leonardo da Vinci, because to me, he was so fascinating that he could paint and then he could be an inventor.
Mm-hmm.
And that ability to have the sort of right brain, left brain, and to bring that together, I always found so fascinating.
Right. Do you have any advice on resources or tools that could be useful for real estate startups?
Communication and conversations with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the more we talk to each other, the more we experience life, the more we go out, we go to coffee shops, or we drive or go into nature. Being observant, and not only here but anywhere you go,
mm-hmm.
is really, to me, the best resource and tool. Obviously, we have, like I said before, a data,
mm-hmm.
and you have the opportunity to get a lot of information quickly. But I don't think anything can outweigh the advantage of actually experiencing it, having the experience of these things,
mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to real estate and development, because it's such an experiential, it's an experience. Things are an
mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah. So a good portion of our audience are student participants from the center. And so do you have any practical advice for them on how to go about an entrepreneurship, or if they want to start their company?
I think that the best is that you have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you have to think about, how do I execute my idea?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the most important is that piece.
Mm-hmm.
So, because in life, right, we could talk about a lot of things, and we enjoy that, and I think that conversation is very important. But it's those moments that we do,
mm-hmm.
those are the most memorable moments we have. It may not have been that conversation we had about it, about sitting here and having this conversation, we could have it. But the fact that we're now doing this
Mm-hmm.
and we're actually having it, and then we're going to go do something after we leave here, is really I think is the most practical advice I could give, is
Mm-hmm.
just to do it.
Just to do it. We love that. Well, thank you for being here today.
Mm-hmm.
That was honestly, you had one of the best answers I've heard.
Oh. Thank
Because
you.
I could relate to that. I think I was literally having a conversation with a friend an hour ago about communication and conversation, and how when we're in a classroom, it's not only about the lecture or what your professor's teaching you. It's about how you're communicating with your partners, or all of that, and how that has shaped who I am today in either understanding people or persuading people. But could very much relate to that. But thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the Insert Innovation podcast. Do you have any other advice you want to give to the students?
No, I think the fact that you are students is the greatest opportunity,
Mhm.
because so much of the time as we get older, we stop being students,
Right.
and because we think we already know,
Yeah.
or it takes energy to come up and do new things. So I think that when you're a student, it is the most incredible time of your life, and
Mhm.
hopefully it's like they say, a lifelong learning of it.
Mhm.
And as I talked about fear, it's not fear as it's reckless. It's controlling something inside you that says you can't do it.
Right.
And like I said, I think you get that a lot from the support of each other, and that's why students in a classroom, and that comfort to be able to speak out in a classroom forever will help you. But even if the fact you're not comfortable in speaking out in a classroom, because honestly, I was never that comfortable in speaking out in the classroom. I never really participated. I was somebody who sat in the back.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think I would get so distracted from observing everybody that was participating in the conversation that I learned from that.
Mm-hmm.
So there is not a seat in the room, in any room, or a place that you are that's ever a bad seat to be in, because
Right.
it'll all show you something.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Kate. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening. We will be back with the next podcast soon.
Mhm.
That was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Did